Netflix revealed details about its upcoming permanent retail destination, Netflix House, that was first announced 8 months ago, including where the first two venues will open in 2025. According to The Verge, not to be confused with The Verve, where the symphonies are always bittersweet, and the initial Netflix House locations will be open in, quote, two of the most popular shopping centers in America, according to Netflix, the Galleria Dallas and the King of Prussia Mall, and will take over the sites of former department stores, providing each venue with over 100,000 square feet of space. Details on what exactly will fill all that space and draw fans to the streaming giant's first two permanent venues remain thin, but they will include, quote, regularly updated immersive experiences and, quote, unique food and drink offerings, according to Marion Lee, Netflix chief marketing officer. Jeff, I'm curious now, would you be advising Netflix to make this move? And if not, why not? And if yes, what do you think they need to get right for the effort to be successful?
Yeah, so a few things on this one. I think that the headline is, Netflix is filling voids left by dead department stores. They picked, I've been to both of these locations. I'm sure you guys have as well. They picked phenomenal entry points into this business model. These are not the left for dead Bed Bath and Beyond type.
The B and C malls. Yeah, right.
No,
it's a good point, though.
This is a very, very, tier one type center that they've opened up these locations, or are going to be opening those locations across the two centers. I think it's a really interesting move for Netflix into a more customer focused, direct to consumer type model. I'm a buyer of this move.
You are.
It's only two locations. I don't think it's a big bet for them, but I think the upside potential for what they could expand this into is more attractive. I think what I would say is they probably should forecast a little different on these two locations of how the rest of the rollout may look, because these locations are so prime. I think the locations that they'll have to put on behind this should be obviously very well thought through as they did these first two locations. But yeah, I think it's where everybody's moving to try to get more customer experiences and foot traffic to actually engage with your brand and your product category a little bit more interestingly than just come buy my t-shirt and jeans. It's actually getting the consumer to experience the brand in a different way, and they haven't issued very much other than a few pictures around what the concept will ultimately look like. So it's a little bit of, let's see how this looks, and very curious, no different than what Wayfair did up in Chicago here. We kind of got to see it firsthand, and I think it's a tremendous step for them.
Yeah. All right, Kelly. So do you agree with Jeff, or are you I'm curious what your take is, and are there any watch outs that you would have for Netflix in order to make sure this thing is successful?
Yeah, definitely. I do ultimately agree with Jeff. I think this is a interesting move. Very much an experiment for them. I think they're dipping their toes in this new area and like, hey, let's see what we can get out of it. My mind actually went when I was reading about it to, a Universal or a Disney, which obviously that's theme park. It's a much bigger scale, but you think about it, they have so much content, and that's kind of one of their differentiators nowadays. Like fewer of the streaming services are doing quite as much unique to service content creation as them. So I think they have a lot of great assets. They definitely could be moving merchandise through there, but I'm really curious to see what type of experiences they do. And like, not only do I think this could be a test into doing more locations in a department store type format, but could this even be a kind of trial to see if they could go as big as theme park in the future? So I think it could be really interesting. I'm actually near the Dallas Galleria right now, so I'm looking out my window, seeing if I can see this building. But I would definitely go check it out.
A lot of interesting points there, man. I've flipped in my head on this one about 100 times since Ann and I talked about it yesterday. But Ann, what do you think? Do you agree with what Jeff and Kelly have said here, or
yes,
would you add anything?
Nope. I think from the second that I read this story, I think this is a great move to test for Netflix. I think Jeff brings out great points. You have to really look carefully at these like prime A malls testing this versus, you know, somewhere in Fargo, North Dakota, a mall that's struggling and, you know, was the shooting location for Stranger Things. Like that mall probably needs to think long and hard about whether or not this is the right destination for Netflix. But look, Netflix has 82 million subscribers in the US and Canada as of April this year. And I love that those individuals now could potentially have a localized mall where they get to have the Disney type of experience that Kelly's talking about. Like they, you know, you look at all of the attractions that are doing well in malls right now, Dave and Buster's, like Nickelodeon Universe, like those are attractions that malls want right now. And they give people a reason to maybe go there on a once, twice, 3 times a year basis. Now, the only question that I do have here is the level of production, we'll say. I think what's the frequency with which this needs to change? Can they minimize like structural changes and enhance like cast visits or Q&As with like things that don't require like a full-on build out of 100,000 square feet every single time they do it? Like the Stranger Things mall, I think, is a good example. But even the ability, like and last thing, I was just at the Peloton studios in New York a couple weeks ago, and just seeing the demand for an in-person class there, like takes me to this exact type of situation. Like if I could meet the cast of Bridgerton, would I go show up at this mall? Like, yeah, probably. Like I'd go there for a Q&A with them about the show. Why not? So I think there's a lot of potential. Like, why not try it? Risk is
and
low.
You stand in line for a week for Renee Jean Page. Right?
Oh yeah,
like,
no,
totally
this is probably, I shouldn't confess this on the podcast, but now I'm into this Luke guy. I mean, Chris has probably seen it in our YouTube history. I finished the Bridgerton thing on the way home from our Salt Lake City trip last week, and I was
didn't
like,
see that.
I gotta go. I gotta learn more about the whole Luke and I forget her name.
Luke and Laura.
Nicola.
No, wait, that's the 80s.
Nicola.
Nicola and Luke. There's like, are they or aren't they a real thing?
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah.
Another fun rabbit hole. Luke used to be in a boy band, it turns out. So if you need more content, there's one for you.
Kelly's got me down a rabbit hole for the weekend. Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, we do. That's what's great about this show. All right, so since you guys are basically in agreement here that you like this, I'm gonna play a little glass half full on this. Okay, there's a couple things that I don't love about this, and one is like
glass half empty.
Glass half empty. Yes, you're right. Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Ann, for correcting me. Yes. Appreciate that. I don't usually take such a magnanimous approach to my intros with this. I'm usually coming in hot, but like I think a couple things I worry about. One, we don't know what this looks like. If it ends up looking like a large scale Disney store, this thing ain't going to work, right? Like nobody wants that, right? Yeah. I mean, they might go to it once, but they're not going to go to it again. The other thing that really concerns me about it, and actually I thought about this more when you said it, is like, I worry that it's trying to be opportunistic with the fact that malls need this versus like, let's be really creative and innovative and do something new akin to like Disney and the vision that Disney had back in the day. I mean, why couldn't you use the mall that they shot for Stranger Things? And like, I mean, none of us knew what Orlando was back in the day before Disney went there. Why couldn't you create the same thing, make it bigger, better, and just be so inspirational and drive people to it versus like trying to go this mall route? And then I get to the question of like, how many malls are there like this that can do where you can do the same thing? Is the growth strategy ultimately capped at the end of the day? And dependent on you getting all the operational dynamics right and being bound by, everything the landlord wants you to do and the parking lot size and all that versus like starting greenfield and creating a vision of what you want this tourist attraction to be. That's what I think. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, but
has anybody been to a Wonderverse?
I haven't.
There's a few select locations. One's opened in Oak Brook. It is a mix of, I would say, in-person entertainment, bar, casual dining, but also has a theater type view for content. It is my expectation that it's packed, and it's every single day. You could walk in there on a Tuesday, and it's a destination for the consumer to come in amongst a mall that has all of our favorite brands. But consumers like going for an hour to have an experience inside of that mall. And I think it's, for me, I think they're going to see a lot of, again, it's dependent upon what type of model they actually employ inside the four walls. But I think it's a super creative way to have a very unique experience within even some of the lost malls that are dead or dying.
And Anne can make her Bridgerton dreams come true. I think
right.
that's
right.
what I'm hearing at the end of the day.